Now we'll move up to the roof of the house, and first we'll look at what pitch means, because you will see this on drawings. Pitch is a measure of the slope of the roof, and the way we describe it is we think about in 12 inches of horizontal run, how many inches of vertical rise are there? And people often say rise over run. The way we write it is something to 12. So this particular slope that you're looking at here is 412. It rises 4 inches for every 12 inches of horizontal run. And we put it on our elevation drawing or our section drawing. And as you can see by looking at this diagram, this triangle here, the bigger the vertical number, the higher the vertical number, the steeper the slope. Something that's, say, 212 is a very flat slope. Something that's, let's say, 1212, that's a super steep slope. A flat slope is good in hot, dry climates, less good in rainy climates. A steep slope is more expensive to build, but it might be good in snowy weather. Occasionally you will see slope expressed as a percentage, and that's real easy to figure. You just write, as you can see in the upper right corner here, you just write rise over run, and that gives you the percentage. So 4 divided by 12 is 1/3. Then multiply that by 100 and you get 33%. What are the components of a roof? Let's look at the vocabulary words we will use. First of all, there's the rafter, and a rafter is basically a joist for the roof. It's regularly spaced just like a joist is. It's sitting at an angle, not flat like a joist. And we can also, of course, replace those rafters with trusses. A truss is a structure made out of triangles, and it's strong. It can cover a wider span than ordinary rafters and purlins can. So if we have a big old wide room, we might buy trusses. And then all of this affects the framing. So those of you who are construction majors, and especially framers, will be familiar with this stuff. We want to think about our framers when we're designing our roofs. We want roofs that are parallel and perpendicular, things at right angles to each other. If things are not at right angles to each other, we create a headache for the framers, and then after that's done, for the finishers, like the drywall people inside. And here's a house where things are not square. There's the outside. Here's what the drywall looks like inside. That must have been a headache. Anyway, on to vocabulary. So when two planes come together, and a plane is a flat surface, when two planes come together, they form a ridge, which is the highest point of a roof. And as long as the walls are the same height and the pitch is the same angle, that ridge will be in the center. If 3 or more planes come together, you get a hip. And then where the interior planes come together, like let's say a gable, like this thing sticking out, a gable intersects a main roof, you get a valley. You could think of it this way: ridges shed water, valleys gather water. And then we have an overhang of various distance to protect the wall of the house from the rain. Then you've probably encountered some of these other words, like a soffit. The soffit is that enclosed area, that boxed in area under the rafters. The fascia, that comes from a Latin word for band or ribbon. The fascia is that board, I think of it as the face of the rafters. Now there are all kinds of types of roofs, and here are a bunch of them all sketched on this slide 20. A flat roof is a roof where the slope is well flat, and it could be 2% or a quarter in 12. The building code requires that even with a flat roof, we have to have at least 2% slope for the water to run off. And those of you who are doing outside work, like concrete work for sidewalks and patios, we're required to have a 2% slope outside as well for the water to run off. A shed roof is a single plane, a single flat surface at a slope. A gable roof is two planes coming together. And a hip is three or more planes coming together. Could be 3, could be 4. So shed roof, one flat surface. Gable roof, two surfaces coming together. Hip roof, 3 or 4 surfaces coming together. Then we get some fancy variations in different styles of architecture. The Dutch hip is this deal where you have a gable roof, but then you have a flat sort of a shed roof underneath it. A gambrel is this one that looks kind of like a barn, and in a way you could think of the steep part of the roof as being a wall with shingles on it. So you get a lot of shingle protection for your house. Then a mansard, this is a French style, is like a gambrel, but it doesn't have that slopey top on it. A dormer is where you cut a hole in the roof to stick a window in it. And the dormer usually has a gable roof on it, so two surfaces coming together with a window under them. And finally, just a couple of comments about materials. And many of you probably know more about roofing materials than I do, so let's just think about the basic ideas. The sheathing is the support surface for the roofing. So we have the rafters or trusses that make a framework. The sheathing might be plywood, exterior plywood, that goes on top of that, and that's going to support the roofing material. On top of the plywood or other sheathing comes the underlayment, which is the waterproof layer. And it could be various kinds of plasticky stuff and felt and so forth. And then the top layer is what we think of as the roofing, the shingles, the standing seam metal, the tile. That's the top layer. As drafters and designers, we need to think about how much all this stuff weighs, because whatever is on the roof has weight that's going to get carried down into the walls, down the walls, down into the foundation, and down to the soil, which we hope can support it. So when you use heavy materials, you want to be thinking about, can all the rest of the structure support it? And finally, when we're thinking about roofing materials, when you order roofing materials, you order it by the square, and a square is actually 100 square feet, so 10 feet by 10 feet, and you measure it not looking straight down as the crow flies, but you measure it on the actual surface of the roof, which makes sense because you're trying to order enough roofing material to cover the actual roof. So that's where you take the measurement.